There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital, the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no. Which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print, say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
Right. Hello, cousins. Thank you for joining us for another episode, and I'm sure totally mess up error-free on the when we're facing another time change. So I'm sure everything's going to go perfectly today. It already has for me. I've done everything completely backwards and in the wrong order that I could possibly do it today. So I'm loving life at this moment.
Maybe being an hour earlier somehow like puts us in a less trafficky internet slot, and we'll have a great perfect stream this time.
Yeah, hopefully, like, fingers crossed, right? So yeah, I know I absolutely hate having to do this, and I hate that it just doesn't make any sense at this point. I don't care which one it is. Just pick one and fucking stick with it at this point. I don't need it to be light until 10 o'clock at night. I don't care. Like, whichever one, and we'll adapt. We're humans. We do it. But this is horrible. I mean, people die on time changes, like taking away people's sleep and messing with their circadian rhythm. Like, if you want to get conspiratorial about it, it's like, you know, oh, we can control them this way type of a thing. Keep them from fighting us. But no, it just makes people more angry. So yeah. It's been horrible. I think I don't really adapt well to time changing or the clock. It's I think like one of the worst things that we have to do, and I really envy places that don't actually have to do it. And that's another big problem too. Some places do, some places don't, and we really need to have some sort of cohesive system on that because it's awful and I hate it. So when I'm president, we're not going to do this anymore.
Like
Anyway,
my parents keep telling me, like, they bring up every decade or so, they're like, oh, we're going to get rid of daylight savings time, but then no one actually does it.
yeah, no, and then they did a couple of years ago. They passed legislation in the Indiana House, and they're like, we're not going to do it anymore. And then like the next time it came up, like later in the year, they're like, haha, psych, yeah, we are. And then nobody's ever talked about it again. They never went back to it. And it's like tons and tons of people. And if you saw Living Skeletor Rick Scott come on and be like, we need to lock daylight savings, and it's like, all right, and he's got like this massive Israeli flag behind him, and it's like, I remember the days when it was like American flag everything, and you're sitting there with,
that, like, Israelis hate daylight savings time, we got to get rid of it.
right? Yeah. Oh yeah, if that was the case, if they had something to say about it, then we would, let's roll out the red fucking carpet about how time works now.
Daylight savings is anti-Semitic, we have to get rid of
right
it.
Yeah, let's put that legislation through. That's next, I'm sure. Yeah, so thanks for being with us. We appreciate it because we know if it's hard on us, it's hard on you. So and who even knows how time works at this point? When I was trying to make some promotional posts for to say when the show was going to be on, I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's where 1 o'clock used to be, where 11 o'clock used to be. Now it's wherever it is for wherever you are. So it's stupid. Anyways, shout out to the chat, to our regular viewer, Are You Time Traveler 2 says, they say your sound is low. So,
My sound, I can always turn up a little bit, but it's also
oh, yeah.
supposed to have an auto make my sound amazing feature, which I don't know if ever activates.
It always sounds good to me, but it's like, like, I'm fine. I don't know. Like, you're the expert. You're the sound expert. So I
Do I
always
have
defer
echo
to your
cancellation?
wisdom.
Do I have a stereo audio input? No. Auto gain control, you're supposed to be doing your job right now, but I'm over here controlling my own gain, not automatically.
Yeah.
Am I any better now? Check. Blah, 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 blah. I'm also talking a little quietly.
Yeah, I can hear you pretty well. So.
Need to up my energy level.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're like super early. I'm over here complaining. I'm East Coast, but you're West Coast time, so you're super early, and that sucks. And I hate it. I hate it for you. Anyways, I think that's probably enough ranting about time change. We're all going through the same thing, and we're like 3 days in, and I still don't feel any more acclimated to it either. And I don't know how long it's going to take. And it's just like, it's like, yeah, and it's like, forget about people with like illnesses or disabilities or, anything like that. Like, okay, just fuck you guys, so like who are going to end up taking the brunt of how badly this goes. And
Well, I only care about myself. That's the only.
right? The American way. Okay, the time traveler says your sound is better. So all right,
Fantastic.
we're yeah. So I guess it's just expect that nothing's going to work this close to a time change. So you get what you get, people. You get what you get. Anyways, we've got an interesting show for you today because we're going to switch gears a little bit and not be on total ranting about current events, which I know is really keeping us all down at this point. But it's current events adjacent, so stuff that's going on, but not Trump related exactly. What's I'm going to actually shut up here in a minute and defer to my illustrious co-host, Mr. Chip Thunderbunk. He just goes by Jared, though.
I wish my name was Chip. That'd be fun.
I heard that name a couple days ago, and I told him about it, and I can't get over it.
Yeah,
it's like somebody's
Chip.
real actual name.
It's
Chip
a legal
Thunderbunk.
name.
Yeah, right?
Chip.
It sounds like an EDM song. Like, if you, like, I don't know.
Yeah, now.
Doesn't it? Like, you could just, like, you could so go on with that, like, as an EDM.
It's gone from sounding old-timey if your name is Chip to now, yeah, it's like, oh, like computer chip?
Ooh, microchip. Oh, that'd be crazy if your name was like Mike R. Chip or something. You'd be like, I'm microchip. Okay. I'm tired. So, anyways, we have an interesting show for you today because we're going to, Jared has graciously agreed to share a personal story with us about something that happened to him that shouldn't have happened to him, but did, and where he faced some pretty significant workplace discrimination through no fault of his own, and then was ultimately did not find any support through community in any type of a way. So I think it raises a bigger question and a bigger hey, why not, about where the inequity in advocacy is, because advocacy groups and sort of social groups are like, we've got to stick up for our own, we've got to take care of each other, such and such and such, but that seems to be a cherry picked situation. So instead of me describing his story, I will just turn things over to him and let him tell you his lived experience. So take it away, Jared.
Well, hey everybody, I'm going to try to give a relatively condensed and like chronological, sensical version of the story. If you've listened for a bit, I've probably mentioned before how I used to teach in the public schools. I was a public school teacher in Arizona, in one of the various public school districts in the Phoenix metro area. And at the time, like this was 2019, it was not that long before COVID. I think it was like 1 year before, so it was either like end of 2019 or beginning of 2020. I think it was actually end of 2019. We were like halfway through the school year. We weren't too far away from a concert, because I was a music choir band like area teacher, if you didn't guess by all of my musical stuff that I do. So at that time, Phoenix had a Democrat mayor. We had a Democrat governor that had just come in. I think it's Katie Hobbs. I can't remember. She's either the mayor or then there's other like Kate Gallego. There's a bunch of Kates and Katies in our Arizona politics. And like basically every level of government in the town I am in, at least, because people think of Arizona as, oh, that's the South, that's like part of the red states group, and it's like that. We're actually more of a flippy floppy kind of state, as you've seen in the last like few elections. We kind of go back and forth, but one of the things that I actually really like about the Arizona citizenry in general, whenever there is a ballot initiative that comes up that seems that like abortion, for instance, or access to abortion rights, we pretty handily voted for. We have now enshrined that in the Arizona Constitution, and then everybody can fight about the exact specifics, but you are, at the least, allowed to have an abortion within however many weeks. I don't remember the exact ones, but we got something. We legalized weed. We increased our minimum wage way before actually, we voted for that like 6-7 years ago, and now every year we have like an attached to the rate of inflation, basically a cost of living sort of adjustment. Like, we're doing, it's not enough, but it's something. Like, and Arizona voters are the ones that did that. It's not our state house, state Congress, or governor that got that stuff through. It's that we have a relatively loosey-goosey ballot initiative system. So the actual citizenry of Arizona, I have some respect for. I like us. I don't think that we're a state full of horrible deplorables or whatever. I think in general,
like some states that some of us are from.
It might just be the area I'm in. I don't know. But I mentioned all that, the fact that we had Democratic-controlled everything from top to bottom when this happened to support my points later. Anyway, why did I stop working in the public school system? Well, I technically resigned. I want to try to tell this just like factually, not with my own bias here, and you can decide for yourself. I was forced to resign. Why? Well, I came into work one day, and unexpectedly, they're just like, don't go to your job today. You're going to go to the district office. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm sure everything's fine. Like, nothing's wrong if it's like suddenly go to the district office. Don't go to your particular school site.
It's
I go
still
in
like
there.
getting called to the principal's office, no matter how old you are.
I'm getting called to the principal's office now because I'm an
Even
adult.
worse.
And the regular principal, and I should say this, that both my principals were my principal and vice principal, actually, and there was a second school like attached, so I technically had like 2 or 3 or 4 different principals I was talking to, but all of them at least were neutral, if not positive, towards me. I received only like there's like 4 ranks of evaluations you can get, and I was always on the top of the 4, like exemplary or exceeds expectations, whatever they called it. I got like all A's. On my adult report card, which is funny because if you're in the arts, they don't really know what you're doing. Like, they can't come in and be like, you're a horrible painter. You don't know how to paint. Because, like, they probably didn't study that unless you have one of the very rare arts background principals, which do exist. Every once in a while, a band director goes crazy and gets into administration, but it doesn't happen very often. So, take my evaluations for what they're worth. Really, it becomes how many kids are you sending to the principal and how much of a hard time are you giving me? And then if you aren't giving them a hard time, they like you. they like if you handle your own issues.
How many parents have complained about you for any particular reason?
That, too, kind of goes into it. It's like, how much extra work do you give your principal? And that has a big effect on how much they like you as a teacher. Here, this is just public school teaching tips by Jared. So I called in. And I don't remember exactly, because it was a lot of just, concerned people talking and no one really talking to me and just them talking to each other. And I'm just in the room and I'm just sitting there. And but did you do this? Okay. So what it is they're like, we've had some parents complain. They wouldn't be specific about what they complained about. I was asked about my personal music. Like, I do have one of my most popular songs is a bit racy. It's full of penis words and it's not hateful content. It's not hateful conduct. I didn't make like a freaking neo-Nazi album or whatever, but it is the type of comedy music that may appear on like a Howard Stern type program back in the early 2000s or a South Park, goofy sex jokes. That was not mentioned in this particular meeting, but we had a previous one I think a year or it's not 2 earlier. So the parents, at least a couple of parents knew about it. And what I assumed is, okay, now they've been steadily complaining now for 2 years and they've okay, our principal isn't going to fire him. So now we're going to go to the district level. So the accusations that were actually leveled on me were improper use of email, because I emailed myself something to print later, while I was on the clock. I was probably at lunch, but either way, it's how many people do you know who are forced into a resignation for a first offense misuse of email?
accusation. And the other one, which that just happened like the day, because it happened to be the day they called me in was the same day that I had a big stack of checks in my desk that needed to go to actually the Arizona Diamondbacks because we were gonna be part of a whole bunch of schools that were gonna sing the anthem. They do that once or twice a year. They're just like, all right, public elementary schools, just pull out all your kids who feel like they want to sing. We're going to sell them tickets. The tickets are not free. We're going to sell their parents tickets. Those tickets are also not free. And they'll do this on a random like Tuesday day game that nobody's going to be going to. So you kind of like fill your audience with yelling kids. And then after you sing the anthem, you go watch the game. It's a fun time. The tickets are greatly reduced. It was like $10 or $20 per ticket where it should have been like 40, but still. I had everybody's ticket payments in my desk, and the first thing I'm like, hey, I don't know what's happening. You need to know in my desk, and here's this money. You need to take care of that. And they did. But then they add on like not like embezzlement, but like mishandle. I had money in the wrong place at the wrong time, but at no point was there like an accusation of, like, no one said I didn't get my tickets. You know what I mean? No one's like, Jared ripped us off. He took our money, stole it, and we did not get it. No. 2 days later, one of my coworkers brought all the kids to the baseball game, and that all went off without a hitch. But I wanted to point out that those are the reasons, the official reasons.
Yeah, they have to come up with some legal shit to cover their asses.
Because they can't just fire you for nothing. And Arizona, they can. I'll drop that. I'll leave that for a second here. But yes, those are the two reasons. And what they were. It's not technically a firing. It's like you can. I was forced to resign. It's like you can choose to resign, and then here's the conditions, and you sign an NDA, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm probably breaking that now. I haven't said who it was. I don't care. What are they going to do? Get mad and hire me?
Really?
Come at me. Maybe then the news will care.
Right.
So it's like you can resign, and it won't be a big deal, and then we won't go after your license, and you can go get a job somewhere else, and that's it. We're just we aren't legally allowed to talk shit about you in a referral anyway, so theoretically, you can just float on to the next school district and get another job. And I'm like, I don't know, man. This kind of feels like horseshit. So you can't have a teachers union in Arizona, but you can have the teachers association. So we have the teachers association, and I did pay dues to that, which means I get a lawyer for a little bit. I get a little bit of a lawyer if they're trying to fire me. And I remember going to their like meetings, like join the association. I'm like, oh, I was gonna anyway, but they were talking about how we got this one lady her job back because they fired her because she was moonlighting as a stripper. And it's like, I have no problem with someone doing that, but that does seem like a more egregious thing to try and fire someone over than misuse of email and had money at the wrong time, but none of it was stolen, and that's not part of the accusation. But I technically was supposed to have like put it in this office lockbox, I think, which they wouldn't let me use because it's makes me.
They're gonna figure out a way. I mean, this is like their job is to figure out how to cover up their make sure that they aren't going to get.
There's always something.
Sort of backlash, yeah.
No matter what job you have, if they want to get rid of you, they can do it if they want to. Frick, where the heck was I? So, and they also had gotten people reinstated to their jobs after directly striking children, like with their hands, at work on camera. And they had been. There were many cases of people being reinstated after smacking a kid, and I'm like, that also seems like a more egregious violation than again single time that they could come up with misuse of email, and. Not putting the money in the right place for one day, and then the money got there anyway, and there was no accusation of theft or embezzlement or whatever. So, after talking with the lawyer for a bit, they're going back. The thing that I drop on them is I'm like, look, everything seemed fine. Of course, now I also have to have the lawyer. He's like, hey, you're going to have to let me listen to that song. I'm like, oh, I have no problem. Play it now. I'll sing if you have a guitar. I'll do it right now in front of you. Here's the lyrics. And he's like, okay, this was, he thought it was funny, which made me happy. But he's like, this does not, like, a reason to fire someone. This would be extraordinary if they were really going after you for this. This seems ridiculous. Is there, like, anything else that happened? I'm like, well, we did, like, the Secret Santa slips where they give you a little slip of paper and you put, like, favorite sports team, favorite hobbies. So you can try to get a clue as to what Secret Santa to buy for whatever coworker you get.
Yeah.
And on it, they have, like, name of spouse. And I wrote, John. And this is the first time that I had ever like mentioned, it wasn't like in front of everybody, I wasn't standing up at a meeting or whatever, but it's like the first inkling of I have a husband. And weirdly, that's the year suddenly that I get called in to the district office to be super fired, to be turbo exterminated.
Oh, geez.
So I tell this to the lawyer, and he's like, oh man, like this like sad sigh in a way where he's like, Yeah, that's it. That's what happened, man. Like you have
Yeah.
a large amount of relative. I don't even want to say relatively conservative because most conservative people that I know who call themselves that have no freaking problem with me. Certainly not, or with just like the idea of gay people existing or people like men dating other men. But all it really takes in the public school system is even one. If you just have one parent that's really motivated and happens to be friends with or is a donor to, or in our case, just has enough kids out through the system, they're like, dude, we have to deal with this mom longer than you actually are employee. You might leave before they do. We've made the decision. We care more about making them less mad than keeping you as a teacher. Us, Arizona, a state that famously has a massive teacher shortage. Oh yeah, we can't get anybody to teach in Arizona. Nobody wants to work anymore. All right, let's fire a 5-year a 5-year teacher who has only perfect evaluations. Let's get rid of him. The guy who took the choir program from 20 kids when he got there to 180 kids when he left. Let's get rid of that guy. That's who we need to fuck over right now, right? That'll fix something. And it also happened to be very shortly after we won a strike. We were striking for a 10% raise for us, 20% raise for all of support staff, meaning janitorial, lunch, office, etc. The unskilled labor in the school district, because they were paid even crappier than us. It was like, oh my god, you guys, like I'm getting $30,000 a year, you're getting like 12,000. We got to do something here. So we got our 10% raise, and the way that like the politics, a lot of parents, depending on their persuasions, don't like it because they're like, you're gonna make our taxes go up, and I'm over here like, guys, your taxes are going up anyway, and they're just gonna burn that money. But at least this way we can get a small amount more pay. But there's this ebb and flow of, look, we won our strike, so now they want to kind of make the parents less mad, so they're going to get more concessions directly after the teachers get some concessions. So me being fired might have been part of that also, where it's like, we just put up with them getting a raise, you got to do something. Okay, fine, we'll fire that guy who you
kind of a
don't
good
like.
faith scenario, like, look what we'll do for you. We'll fire somebody who doesn't deserve it just because you want us to.
I don't know, maybe somebody's wife or husband was just who's in the ear of the frickin' superintendent. Who knows? It could be anything. The lawyer told me, he's like, this case is pretty extraordinary. This is some of the least anything that and they are not taking any offers or deals themselves. If you go to, because that's the thing, if I don't take the deal, the forced resignation, they then go after my certificate. So it's not just fired, it's fired and they go to court to try and get me deinstated as a teacher, and that's the risk. That's the threat over you of like, if you try to fight this or argue in any way, we're going to try to take your certificate. And like, who has a better relationship with the Board of Education, like random me or superintendents of school districts? But the lawyer was like, dude, if you go to, he didn't call me dude, he was like freaking 75 years old. He was a cool old man, old school like labor lawyer. He was the closest to like, I don't know, like a blue collar lawyer you're gonna see. I mean, he's taken work for an I don't pay, the association pays dude having a labor dispute. So I imagine he is not a big dollar lawyer, and I very much appreciate and respect the work he did for me. The association only pays for the lawyer at that stage of stuff, the stage that I was at. If I go to court and have to go fight over my certificate, I then have to pay for him. And he told me, he's like, you would have to pay, but also, I'm very sure you would win. So this really is coming down to do you have enough money to go and fight your school district to keep a job that you now know they are willing to just pull absolute horse shit to try and kick you out of? And I'm like,
yeah, and what would be to stop them? Yeah, exactly. And what would be to stop them from waiting?
Do it again.
Do it again. Find some other reason. And like, how well could you possibly do your job at that point when you know that you are, being watched? First of all, you're being scrutinized. That people are now talking about you, and you don't know. You have no control over the narrative anymore.
I gotta protect my $32,000 a year dream job.
Right. Is that how you felt about it at the time, though? Did you I mean, where was your head during this? Were you just like, oh no, I'm losing a job, I'll just get another one, or was it really like a taxing situation for you?
It almost felt like an inevitability, because like the fact that if you do frickin' anything, like you see how crazy the political environment is now. For anybody who's in education, where either direction can get real mad at you, and the only act they have is to try and get you fired. So there's no, it's on off. It's love you, trying to get you fired. There's no like, I have some criticism I'd like to. No, you either go full guns blazing, it seems, or you're secure. So I kind of assumed that at some point I would get in a fight about this music, because like I can't unwrite it. I can't get in a time machine and unwrite my funny song.
Yeah.
That, and I told my principal this, that goofy song makes me as much money as you do. So if you want me to choose one or the other, I really can't. I have to do both to be able to afford my rent. And they're just like, yeah, that makes sense. Because everybody around me, every one of my coworkers has 2 to 3 jobs.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
I think
the band guy was
anybody who went
moonlighting
through
at
school knows
Costco.
that teachers moonlight. You'll go over to Lowe's or whatever, and they're checking you out, or you go to eat at a restaurant, and you're like, oh, this is awkward. So yeah.
So, my lawyer did get me a full year of pay as severance, I guess. So like I did get something more than just sign this NDA, go away, never speak a word of it, and we won't try to take your license to. Here's a full year of pay that we were gonna give you for this year, but you don't have to actually work. So,
Yeah,
kind
right.
of at the time, it kind of felt good. I'm like, you know what? F this. I'm out
Right,
of this job now. I don't have to freaking worry about it. I'll go teach somewhere else, or I'll
Yeah,
teach
I was about
privately.
to ask you that. Were you just like, I'll just move on down the road, or
I knew
did
I
you
was
feel
not
like-
going to do another public school job, or at least I was pretty iffy about it, and I haven't, and I probably won't. Especially not now. Like right now, that's the thing. If I wasn't fired then, I would have gotten fired for refusing to go to work during COVID. And if I wasn't fired for refusing to go to work during COVID, they were threatening teachers' certificates over that. They were like, if you don't come to work during COVID, we're going to take your cert. And it's like, wow, why don't we have any teachers? Why do we have this crazy teacher shortage? Whoa, I can't believe nobody wants to teach.
It almost seems like if you look at the trajectory of how things have gone, that it almost, you don't want to say, oh, that was a good thing that happened to me, but in the micro
I
version,
would have gotten paid for a year if I quit over COVID. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have gotten a free year of
Yeah,
salary. All right, I don't know if I went out or Nicolette, so I'm going to continue talking as if I am the one who is fine and take Nicolette's shocked face off of the thing. Does it stay shocked if I bring it back on? Let's see. It does. Okay. So
it's me.
okay, I think it was her and not me, so I'll keep talking. Okay, so after getting fired, and again, there's no confirmation that it was because they found out I was in a homosexual relationship. Still am in a homosexual relationship. There's no proof over that. That's not the reason stated, even though under Arizona's constitution, they legally could have fired me for that. That is one of the reasons that is allowed. And that's why I was talking about how we had top to bottom, had and still have top to bottom Democratic leadership of pretty much every layer of government in Arizona. Like my county, Democrat. My governor, Democrat. My municipality, Democrat. The sheriff, it's supposed to be like a nonpartisan position. He's a Democrat. Like everybody from the highest to lowest, secretary or whatever, education in Arizona, Democrat. Yet, under those good guy run conditions, this still happened to me. No like wokeness came in to protect me. There was an NPR lady who, like, the week I was dealing with a couple of weeks, it was about a month of back and forth with me and the lawyer and the association and my freaking mom, just like, what the fuck is happening? How do I deal with it? She's like, can't believe I'm doing this to you. This is super heinous. Really sorry. But in the middle of all that, I saw there was an NPR just like tweet that went out from like the local Arizona, the Phoenix, like KJZZ, KJazz, and they're like, we're looking for stories in education from like educators. If you have any stories, tell us. So I sent him an email to Lakshmi Singh, I think, and I'm like, hey, I was working at this district and I got fired for being a big homo. Think you want to talk about that? She's like, well, you have to give me some more information so I can look. I'm like, okay, it was this school district, this blah, blah, blah. Never heard anything back. So I apparently did not have a feel good enough of a lib story for NPR to take that on. Then
It
I
was
have
me,
my
by
just
the
like,
way. I'm returned. Sorry.
hey, Nicolette.
Please go ahead. Yeah, no, it was me that froze up. It just everything shut off. So unsurprisingly.
Then after NPR didn't, I mean, it's freaking NPR. I don't like expect to be like, oh, we're gonna nationally cover your freaking thing, or even locally in Arizona. But they didn't want to talk to me. And then my internet community also didn't have any really thing to say. Like, these are people who I've seen fundraisers for people's, this is gonna make me sound heartless, for like people's sick pets that will get $10,000 to $50,000 of donations for. Which, I mean, hey, if people have love in their heart, I love animals. I certainly don't want anything bad to happen to people's pets, but it's always you look at situations where like, okay, that is a 14-year-old dog, and you are going to put $14,000. Guys, you can't afford your rent right now. Why are okay? But
no, you're completely justified in that argument as well.
But there was no $14,000 fundraiser for me. I don't expect that. I don't like deserve it. I don't just like, I was in bad times. Automatically, the support network should kick in. But you keep hearing about the blah, blah, blah community. In this case, the LGBTQ blah, blah, blah plus community is supposed to like be a community. Like, you would expect, they're going to kick into action. Something's going to happen. This is like one of the most, this is some civil rights shit, right? We're all going to do a boycott. And there's going to be a march. No. And I don't... At the time, I probably wouldn't have wanted it because you just want to frickin' hide and get away from people.
Forget
and, like,
about it, right?
Fix your life and move on. But like, I don't know. Looking back, it's like, well, what the heck, man? This is,
Yeah.
It's like if you were at a store, you're working at Walmart, and frickin' Jimmy got fired for being Haitian, and you're like, what the fuck? We're coming together for Jimmy. This is nonsense. And you would kind of expect that, but it's like, what the fuck? Jared got fired for being homo in 2018, in the year of our Lord, in our modern liberal utopia of America.
Right.
And then you start examining, well, why doesn't that happen? And I kind of, you kind of have you hit a crossroads when things happen to you in your life. And I could go like the angry route and just become more bitter and be like, it must be blank group that's causing this, or gotten like way into the dumb conspiracy theories, not the ones that are, just proven with a readily available fact. Those kinds of conspiracy theories.
A real opportunity to shoot to the right for no reason.
I could blame the Jews. I could blame, it's the Latinos in my district. No, because that would all be fucking nonsense. So instead, it's like, well, I guess I'm going to start reading Marx, or like reading somebody. I read Kropotkin. I'm like, maybe anarchism. And I was an anarchist for like a whole month. And then I start reading Marx and Engels. I read Lenin before any of that, just a little bit. Read some State and Revolution. I feel like, what does this guy think that should be happening? And a lot of these issues will never be solved through morality. That's essentially what I was waiting on. I was waiting for the moral police to come, and because of their good morals, to morally put moral pressure on the school to then morally give me some, I don't know, a job or my moral money, or at least like embarrassment, some kind of settlement. I don't know what the heck I wanted, but like, it doesn't work like that.
You want
problems are economic.
I mean, it's not that difficult or outrageous that you wanted to be justified. What happened to you to matter and to mean something, and it should have. Ultimately, it should have.
If you have an organized labor power, you can solve problems like this. That is the day that I lost faith in the. I don't want to say lost faith, because it seems that there's like faith, some kind of like wishing involved with it. That is the day that the LGBTQ, et cetera, whatever movement demonstrated to me that politically they are a useless, non-community, non-force, because they don't organize for like the betterment of the entire group. In fact, who even is they? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they organize, like, who?
Like, there's leadership.
Who's the leader? Who's the what? Like,
right.
The same people who get in a parade with a rainbow flag on a Lockheed Martin logo, or, like, the U.S. State Department, or, like, the CIA, literally the CIA, and they're like, oh, yes, it's like, who is we? Who did we all get to vote on whether or not we get in the frickin' the military industrial complex parade that happens to have rainbows on it? Like, did we all make that decision together, or was it like a couple people with money who organized the thing, who may or may not even they might not have sex with any men? Like, the whole like trying to base a political movement on who you love just doesn't work. It's not that it's morally wrong or morally right, whatever. It just has proven itself to be ineffective. Not just to me. That was like the moment where it kind of, I guess, clicked for me. But you look through history, like, it hasn't really worked out that way. What has worked historically is all the poor people getting together and deciding they're sick of it. Like, right. The Russian Revolution didn't happen because, like, all of this particular ethnic group, let us get together. All of this particular race or gender group, let us get together. No, it was everybody. It was everybody who isn't a king or a prince or part of the secret. Heck, part of the secret police even was like, you know what, F this. We're freaking sick of this. Like, it's the only way that it materially gets done. And that event pushed me down that road of thinking, which since then I have only found to be more and more correct and accurate when trying to analyze this crazy world we live in.
Yeah, it's again, it's class consciousness. I think that comes into it. You know, that's something that we are always drilling in our series here. But it doesn't. You know, if you are really united by class, then you don't get pulled apart by these like small like things like, well, I don't want to say minimize it, but like race doesn't affect you, and gender and identity and sexual preference. Those things fall by the wayside when you realize the bigger picture is these are just means of oppression that are basically going to be politically manipulated. Because as you described, the people in the parades often are the ones that are wealthy, who just want to be in a parade, or you're being used as a political football, you know, one way or the other. And that's what we're seeing right now with transgender rights and people kind of fear mongering, I think, a little bit about gay marriage going backwards. I don't really think that that's going to get undone. Then again, I might be wrong about that, but like I think that, you know, it's just a means of, like, if you can't really argue about things like race anymore, like, okay, we can't argue about race anymore. That's done. Now what's the next thing? No gay, you know. So then that you kind of end up there, and then that kind of fell by the wayside. So a lot of there's less and less ideologies for politicians to argue over to try to get you to give them money. I think what it ultimately comes down to. And that's why there's no like leadership type of a situation. That's why there's no like definitive organizations. So, you know, back in the 80s there were, you know, but you might have seen something, you know, more to that point, like, you know, one of our people got fired for being gay and that's wrong, you know. But nowadays it's just like not interesting enough of a story. So
you might be able to get it off the ground if they can find a way to, at the end of it, it's like me cheering for Bernie Sanders or something, like if I was like supporting some established, and that's why I'm gonna run as the Democratic candidate for District 43. Like maybe they could spin that into something that like helps the machine, but otherwise, you're not gonna hear that.
Right, because you're not doing anything.
To kind of cap my thoughts, because this sort of summarizes how like my course of thinking about this and any other like identitarian movement. There's a lady, Alexandria Kollontai, who was, guess what, a Bolshevik way back with the Russians. And where is it? Come up, screen share. I want to read a chunk of this paragraph. Here, she's talking about the feminist movement, but you could just replace that with any identitarian movement, whether it be a specific racial group or a specific sexual minority. Like, here, just replace anytime she says feminism with LGBTQ or freaking BLM, like any of these, again, identity-focused groups. The women question assumed importance for women of the bourgeois classes approximately in the middle of the 19th century, a considerable time after the proletarian women had arrived in the labor arena. So they're saying, like, this all didn't come up just as soon as women started getting jobs. It's not like it's not as soon as gays started getting jobs or as soon as black people started getting like equal access to jobs. A considerable time after the proletarian women had arrived in the labor arena. Under the impact of the monstrous success of capitalism, the middle classes of the population were hit by waves of need. The economic changes had rendered the financial situation of the petty and middle bourgeois unstable, and the bourgeois women were faced with a dilemma of menacing proportions: either accept poverty or achieve the right to work. Wives and daughters of these social groups began to knock at the doors of the universities, art salons, editorial houses, offices, flooding to the professions that were open to them. The desire of the bourgeois women to gain access to science and the higher benefits of culture was not the result of a sudden maturing need, but stemmed from that same question of daily bread. The woman of the bourgeoisie met, from the very first, with stiff resistance from men. A stubborn battle was waged between the professional men attached to their cozy little jobs and women who were novices in the matter of earning their daily bread. Basically, it's like if you're amongst the bourgeois, if you're in these nice office positions, men, women, and women just weren't allowed to come in at all. That really was just a straight up unfair competition thing where it's like, look, some of you fuckers don't want to lose your jobs because you know some of these ladies can do it just as well as you. But again, this is inter-bourgeois. This is fighting over the CEO position. And hey, we've fixed that, right? We got women CEOs everywhere. Isn't everything amazing now? isn't the condition of your average working class woman so much better now that certain big companies are run by ladies? Like, isn't that really just right? You get a check in the mail every month. Like, good job, women. Here's your free. I'm being sarcastic, obviously. As they entered the labor arena, these women proudly referred to themselves as the vanguard of the women's movement. They forgot that in this matter of winning economic independence, they were, as in other fields, traveling in the footsteps of their younger sisters and reaping the fruits of their efforts of their blistered hands. Last paragraph, I promise. Is it really then possible to talk of the feminists pioneering the road to women's work when in every country hundreds of thousands of proletarian women had flooded the factories and workshops, taking over one branch of industry after another before the bourgeois women's movement was ever born? Only thanks to the fact that the labor of women workers had received recognition on the world market were the bourgeois women able to occupy the independent position in society in which the feminists take so much pride. I highly recommend you guys read this whole dang thing. It's a Alexandria Kollontai social basis of the women question. Even titled in a way where you'll hear like people talk about like the Jewish question, the women question. Because back in the like turn of the 1900s, the idea of women working at all was still like controversial and weird.
Right.
But you can replace that with any identity group. Where does the change actually come from? Proletariat people just working down in the trenches. And where does the unity in these so-called movements, the unity in these movements like publicly like end up happening? It's in the upper ranks. Like if I was some like gay television host that was fired, I could probably go on a whole fucking book tour about it. I would have a t-shirt and fashion line going by the end of the week. But no, I'm just some a-hole down here. And I mean, teaching is a pretty white-collar job even then. Like, it's not enough anymore.
Right.
All right.
And, well, it's interesting because, in contrast, you were working in a public school system, which you would just naturally think at that time, and by now we would be past that scenario of sexual orientation playing any kind of role in your effectiveness of doing your job. And as you said, you were very highly regarded and well.
They wanted to fire somebody, and I was the one who was gonna receive the least pushback. So that's it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's probably why they tried to make it worth your while, I guess you might say, but by not going after your license or not really making it,
when the lawyer kind of was like, "You guys are being dicks," I'm like, "Fine, we'll give them a year of pay."
Right? Yeah. No. So I think probably you might say that like you fared better than you might have. It could have gone, I think, a much worse way.
Because I did have a lawyer, like
yeah, right.
That
exactly.
shows you I'm not even at the bottom. Like I'm in a privileged position in all of this, and it still fucking sucks.
Well, the thing of it is just you say 2019, late 2019 that happened. Well, in 2018, so like this, there was already a precedent for this. But to give you a little bit of history and insight on this, in the 70s, early 70s, is when something called busing happened. If it's where essentially the country decided politically, we're going to fully integrate schools, not just for the purpose of integration, but also so that racially integrate. Also so that we can't get pointed at anymore and be like, this all black school is low income. Or this, like something like that. Like, no, we're going to mix everybody together, regardless of like if they're here or there. We're going to mix all the people together. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to actually have busing, because before that, typically busing wasn't a thing. Most of us rode the school bus to school. That wasn't a thing at that time. So you either got a ride from your family member, or you walked to your neighborhood school, or you took public busing if you were in a big city. Okay, so that, as you can imagine, created massive blowback from people who didn't want that to happen, white people. Lots of violence, lots of, practically race riots happening around the country. Okay, so fast forward a bit, right? Like I could tell more stories about this, but I won't, because that's not really what we're on right now. But point is the white flight didn't really play into this because it was happening in suburban areas as well. It wasn't just the big cities that were doing this. It was like a nationwide cascading thing. So you had a lot of really angry white people that didn't want their kids necessarily to intermix with other races. So somebody at some point figured out what they could do was that because there were no charter schools at the time. That wasn't a thing. Private schools were really that, sort of like Hogwarts idea of, those were for wealthy people. They also didn't necessarily exist at the time. But people figured out if you could get your kid into a Catholic school, then those weren't integrated yet. They did what they wanted. They could do what they want. And it wasn't about, having a religious like teaching or anything. It was about making sure that you didn't have to have your kid go to an integrated school. So they started struggling, like doing everything, backflips, trying to get their kids into these Catholic schools. And what that ultimately did was provide kind of a shelter for exactly what Jared was talking about, what he was referring to. It was not exactly about integration, because that was happening. It was coming. It was not, some civil rights movement had happened. It's not like, this was out of the extraordinary realm of everything. It was more about class, because these white people mostly wanted to keep their kids in their social class, in their economic class, more than they were worried about, we don't want the poors to be, which historically have been people of color. We don't want the poors involved in this. So, okay.
If you look at the results, like look for today, like the current rates of segregation are arguably, depending on how you look at it, are arguably higher today than they were in the in the 70s and 80s, because there was obviously a decrease in segregation right after schools were integrated, like forcefully, and then after that, it's just come back again, not through legal means, not like saying you can't go to this school if you're XYZ, but the economic situation has done that through, whether it be through going to private schools such as Catholic schools, access to some charter schools are nice, some charter schools are scams, but you can get into, like, the nice ones do exist, and the higher class people know where they are, and they all kind of go together. And now you do have some racial integration at these schools, but only within that social class. Like the Obamas went to very nice schools.
Correct. And that is what I was getting at, because if you take what I just said and you fast forward to 2018, in Indianapolis, not far from me, there is kind of, I guess it's like a feeder high school. It's a very famous Catholic high school called Roncalli. And all the kids that, went to the, of other school districts nearby, ultimately could go to that high school. But it was not exactly a private high school, but it is a Catholic high school. Very, very well-to-do Catholic high school. And it is racially integrated, has been for ages, because that argument is over. But again, it's like, what's the next thing that we can do? We can say what we don't want. Well, no gay, okay? Gay is not allowed. So in contrast to what Jared experienced in the public school system, you might expect that if you are, found to be the crime of gay in a Catholic school, that you then would probably lose your seat, right? Because they don't answer to the public. They don't answer to a school board or the government like a public school. They answer to the archdiocese of the state. So each one of them do. Like he's the leader of what happens. So in 2018, which would have been just before Jared had his experience, there was at this Roncalli High School, there was a guidance counselor named Shelly Fitzgerald. I have to think about it like Edmund Fitzgerald. Shelly Fitzgerald. And she'd been guidance counselor at Roncalli for 14 years. It came to light that she was married to a woman, lost her job. Okay. So in contrast to what Jared experienced, the students took it upon themselves to, and I guess maybe some parents as well, to really say, hey, that's unfair. You can't do that. And they're like, this is Catholic school. We can do that. We can 100% do that. But they did, for whatever reason, the timing, the group of people involved, the people who cared about this woman, I guess, it all kind of came together in this collusion of support. Because the story went nuclear. It wasn't just a local situation that happened. It was national news. I believe she was a guest at one of the State of the Union situations. Like she was immediately turned into a political football, but almost celebritized to the point. And like it was huge story.
Like a David Hogg.
Right. Yeah, it basically was. It was very, very similar to that. And then the story finally ultimately ended up with her going on Ellen, and Ellen gave her $25,000.
Oh, nice.
So where is
Yeah, I would've
Jared's
taken that.
$25,000 Ellen money? Like,
That's right, because I got $33,000 in lawyer money. Well,
well, yeah. So but the point is they, this woman fit the mold of the right kind of oppression and the right kind of scenario where it's like, and I think it was also wanting to fight the power. It kind of enabled these people, these
he was
kids.
in the
There
right
were
state,
walkouts.
but then wanted to do a fight. Yeah.
Right, there were walkouts. There were the protests. There were, she's in the pride parade. She's being talked about, tweeted about by every politician. So she just ended up fitting the mold, I think, pretty perfectly. And since then, there have been other gay teachers in the state and Catholic schools. The archdiocese was like, nope, and the judge was like, have to do what they say. It's not ours. So, nah, you know what I mean? And she did. She tried to, raise a lawsuit against it, and it, so it's like where like somehow the community and the LGBTQIA plus community, and like they're one of their like leaders, like Ellen, before she was kind of found out for being awful. It's like some people get the star treatment, and then some people are just left to fend for themselves. It seems like it was a very lucky scenario that Jared was able to not get these strikes against his record, not have his certificate challenged, and was able to walk away with a year's worth of pay, just probably to satisfy some of their parental base there.
That was their political situation at the time. Was
right.
Parents felt like they were, well, the power had swung a little bit towards the teachers, and they're like, okay, we got to throw a bone in this direction.
Yeah. So he was in a different way used as a political football, just sort of on the smaller scale of things. But
it was likely to make 1 to 2, maybe 5 at most families happy out of like what was it? I saw 1,000 kids a year.
Yeah, right? But it seems to me that I hate that, like, the whole blessing in disguise idea, because it's like, I went through hell, right? Like, I didn't want that. Like, I hate it when people use that kind of phrase. But today you're basically a celebrity, and you get to travel all over the world and do things that maybe you would have been limited by had that not happened. So I think hindsight, when I look at the story, I'm like, well, I think it worked out well, at least.
It absolutely has. Because like I said, I either would have gotten fired for COVID stuff, like not wanting to go in, or I would have been fired over some like Israel-Palestine saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, if this wasn't the setting for you, I feel like it's too limiting, and what you were able to do. And I think what I see is I think I see a better. I didn't know you then, but I feel like you're probably like a more better version of yourself, because you get to be yourself and you don't have to answer to people as much.
I'm lucky because it worked out, and like I was saying, my position of relative class privilege is. That's the thing. It's not like I don't come from anything, but I've just kind of had enough luck for long enough that I came out of it all right. It didn't ruin my life. It didn't financially ruin me. It didn't make me like I got more jobs.
Yeah. And
I somehow make as much money.
And I'm sure there's been so many people in your position who have not gotten, as landed on their feet, so to say. Like this, it really did, devastate them. Like that was their life, and it was hard for them to get over. So I'm glad that it did work out for you ultimately, but it still makes me angry that you were marginalized as if, because here's the big thing. I went to public school, you went to public school, and most of us did. There are predators in public school, full stop. I have had teachers put hands on me. I had, there was like lots of different incidents and altercations with teachers and people. And, I had to go with other girls to guidance counselors and be their advocate and be like, he literally said something, blah, 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 blah. And nothing would happen. Nothing. And there was.
It's part of what makes me annoyed, as to it, because I know I wasn't no one thinks they're the worst at their job amongst their coworkers, but I'm here like, man, of all the people, I gave a shit. I actually cared.
You showed up, you did it, you helped, you enriched some kids' lives, and
I wasn't smacking any kids around or
and that's the point. You just said you saw people getting advocated for to get their jobs back after laying hands on children, and we all have seen and witnessed and been a party to that. a couple of times that it happened to me, like the school was glad to see me go because they didn't realize that my family was insane and we're all just werewolves and would go crazy if anybody touched or did anything to me. So they were glad to get rid of me. But the idea was that so many of these people go unchallenged, unchecked. And a lot of bad faith people will be like, oh, well, the union just made sure they kept their job. That's not that simple. The thing of it is, watch the news. And it's like, look at Twitter, and it's like every day you're going to see a new thing about a faith leader or a Bible school teacher or a public school teacher who was harming kids, who was taking pictures. Think back to your own experience about even just substitute teachers coming in. How many times did you have like a substitute teacher come in and like they found out they were sitting there looking at porn on school computer all day? Like that happened so many times in my school system, so many times. And it's like with the middle schools too. And it's like, like these people should have some background checks probably done at some point, but they just would do whatever. They didn't care. And then the more that there are teacher shortages, the more that they let these things slide. So, I knew teachers that were sort of like cops where they would do some fucked up shit. Then they would just get another job somewhere else. And then the news would be like, did you know what this guy did? And it's like, yeah, I fucking know what that guy did. He did it to me, like at a different school, or teachers on the job drinking, or like there's so many. And I have known teachers in my life, not Jared, and I'm not talking about you, but I have known teachers, and they're some of the most fucked up people that you could ever like imagine. And when the weekend hits, like these people are psychos. So, they're not some, special class of people, and there are predators, and predators do prey and go, if you're going to be like a child predator or like even a violent person towards children and you enjoy it, then generally speaking, you're not going to go have a job somewhere where that's never going to come up and you're never going to get the opportunity to do that kind of a thing. So to put him into that class really bothers me because we have all had the experience of really bad fucking teachers doing shit they shouldn't be fucking doing. And then you fire a really good teacher for doing like literally nothing just to satisfy 5 families, essentially. It's bureaucratic bullshit.
Yeah, it's extremely sad. But hey, a lot of people have had it a lot worse than me. I've made it through, but it is what has pushed me towards looking at material reasons for what's going on, as opposed to like basically the identitarian route failed me. It proved itself to be ineffective. It showed to me that organizing along identity lines is never going to be as effective as organizing along class lines. Maybe we're getting there. Maybe we're getting closer because more and more people seem to be talking like me, and I don't know. I'm still very much optimistic. I think we'll all be all right in the end.
I was just reminded of in the chat that someone Googled Indiana, or it was Time Travel Googled Indiana teachers. There was a teacher that was literally caught like naked in his own truck with a student, like him behind the wheel, and everybody at the time was like, this was like a good time teacher, like everybody knew this guy, and he's still around for some reason, and he was like, and they were in a parking lot of a what do you call it, like an apartment complex that neither one of them lived at, and everybody was like, what are you doing naked in the behind the wheel of your own car? Like it was like shit. People are fucking crazy, and they're just allowed to continue to do it. So when people who don't deserve to lose their place do, that is a class issue more so than anything else. So would you have said before any of that happened that you were as class conscious as you were after coming out of it?
Well, you hear about a lot of things in theory, and you're like, oh yeah, maybe that's right, and then when things actually happen in real life, you have to then evaluate and go, oh, there is now I have received new data, so I must now adjust my views, and that was one of those. I wish I could say I could just academically willed myself into all of my positions, but a lot of it is due to lived life experience.
Yes, you had one more story you wanted to touch on, I think.
We are pretty much out of time, but I do want to, because this is just really quick. This is like the whole point of me bringing this up is if you are, I want to know what it takes to shake people out of just continually voting for the Democratic Party over and over. I'm not really an electoralist. I think our votes have now been engineered to a point where they do not matter not because like the vote doesn't literally get counted, but so many system things are in place to make sure that these elections can kind of go whatever way the ruling class want them to, either by last second throwing in a candidate that none of us ever voted for, such as your Kamala Harris's, or to remove your options in the form of a Bernie Sanders getting essentially kicked out of his own election twice. So let's look at what our the good guy team, the lesser of two evils, the harm reduction, the resistance, the only people out there fighting for us, I guess I say in huge scare quotes. Let's see what they're doing here. So we have a very fascist move here. Please listen to the words that I say here. The thing Donald Trump did, very fascist. Where is it? President Donald Trump warned Monday that the arrest and possible deportation of a Palestinian activist who helped lead protests at Columbia University will be the first of many to come, as Trump said, as his administration cracks down on campus demonstrations against Israel and the war in Gaza. Free speech, people, where are you now? I am very much a pro-free speech person, and regardless of what side of whatever issue you are on, I think you should be able to protest. And straight up trying to deport people for having different political opinions is very fascist, is very bad, is a thing that you shouldn't do, regardless of what that person's opinions even are. Yes. So we then have the Fox News story that says Palestinian activist arrested for leading protests on college campus, and it says a federal judge in Manhattan ruled that anti-Israel agitator Mahmoud Khalil, that's the guy by the way, Mahmoud Khalil, is not to be deported, quote, unless and until the court orders otherwise on Monday. So he's in some kind of fun legal limbo. That's great. Columbia University protests, we've heard all about that. So here's what the good guy team has to offer you. If you're about to get deported for violation of your First Amendment rights, don't worry. The Democrats, the people who definitely are for real fighting against this and aren't just like the different shirt but exact same intentions and team. We have Rashida Tlaib. I always said Tlaib. It's Tlaib, T-L, Tlaib. I'm joining 13 of my colleagues to demand that the Trump administration immediately release Mahmoud Khalil. Their illegal actions set a dangerous precedent, the actions of the Trump administration. They say it's illegal because it's violating First Amendment rights, blah, blah, blah. We cannot allow them to shred our constitutional rights to free speech and due process. Free Mahmoud Khalil. 13. Do you know how many Democrats are in Congress? Because it's well over 200. So if you get fascism happening, don't worry. Less than 1% of Democrats in Congress will sign a strongly worded letter. Look at the names who we have here. So we got Rashida, of course. We got, I don't even know these people, Nydia Velasquez. We have Ilhan Omar, who you would very expect for Ilhan to be on there. She is as close to one of the good guys. Like, I'm not saying that everything done by every Democrat is always bad, always, but it's only like one of them gets to be the assigned, designated, like, shit stirrer who has good opinions. And then if they gain too much power, they must stop being that. And, like, look at Bernie. Bernie used to be the revolution, whoa, and then he's like, just go vote for the Democrats. Just please keep voting for Democrats. We used to have AOC, bring the ruckus, we're going to protest everybody. And now she's like, be nice at town halls. Notice AOC's signature is not on this document. What is that, Ariana Presley? Yeah, sorry, Ayanna Presley, not Ariana. Ariana Grande. Ayanna Presley. Al Green, who signs in green, which I think is, I would think that was adorable in the past. Now I just think kind of makes him a fucking hack. It's like, grow up. Gwen S. Moore. Notice her name isn't Blue. All right. Nakima Williams, James P. McGovern, Latifah Simon. I don't know most of these names, but hey, if Summer Lee, people named Summer are allowed to be in Congress now? What year is it? It's nothing against people named Summer. It's just like one of those names that I associate with someone being in junior high. So them being a member of Congress.
Yeah.
Summer Lee.
Like they have to have a new name when they turn 18.
Like, yeah, you got to go to be like Sarah or something. You know?
Right?
You have to become Stephanie here. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it
there you go.
Goes to show how, they're gonna save you. They're here we go. You know,
they will
get your
strongly
money
word
ready.
A letter, and the letter is not even that strongly worded, but like
and he's just gonna sit around until like the Trump administration leans on this judge enough to be like kick this guy out. But that sets the precedent. They said they were going to do that shit, and then they're going to at least do it this time or one time or sometime until he loses interest. But
it sounds like at least temporarily the judicial system is kind of doing the thing it's supposed to do, which is like stop nonsense from happening like this. But I don't know if I keep hearing about how they're deporting everyone, and I'm like, well, has that actually happened yet? No. Okay, let's save our alarm for is the thing actually happening? And I was like, oh shit, here it is. The thing's actually happening. Here, I don't know his specific legal state. I don't know if he was a green card holder, permanent resident, visa. Like he definitely. It says that he stopped being a student in December, so that might mean that like his student visa now doesn't count. But then like I don't know what his parents' situation and blah blah blah. But it seems like people who. Because if you're a permanent resident, you're definitely covered by the GD Constitution. Like, it's one thing if you're just here, like, on vacation and you're, like, engaging in political uprisings. Then it's like, okay, well, you don't really have any protection from this stuff. But he was not that.
So we wait and we see. You know, that's ultimately where it is. Are they going to go through with this? Which, you know, it would set a precedent where they try to get to be like, oh, we said we do it. We're authoritarian. We're cleaning this MAGA up, we're doing it, you know? Or is it going to be one of those things that just falls by the wayside, you lose interest and moves on? You know, and that's what I keep trying to tell a lot of people. Like, I know the knee-jerk reactions come from seeing headlines that the news companies want you to share. Okay, so like wait till tomorrow, like with the tariffs. It's like, you guys, like, okay, it took like one, like he's like, we're gonna do a 25% tariff and it happens now. Next day, tariffs are done. Next day, 250% tariff. Next day, you know,
there will be a 1 month pause on all tariffs. It's like, well,
exactly. Yeah, it's just whatever he's, you know, he's so loosey goosey. It's whatever he's feeling in the moment. It's just vibes. It was like that last time. But before we get into that conversation, we are about at the end of the show for this week. So thank you so much for joining us. Last week we had some audio issues. Trump tried to silence Jared and wouldn't let him play his song. He doesn't have the silly sex song queued up for us, I don't think. But you
can find that on your own.
Yeah, that's for you guys. But he does have another song for us. I think it is the one you tried to play last week. Yeah.
It is still silly. It is about, this is from my album, Songs to Pay for My Pool. Please go look up Songs to Pay for My Pool.
New release, guys. New release.
A catastrophic crack in our pool, and we have to fix it, or it could make things worse.
Right.
Anyway, this is about the idea of we have a Roomba, essentially, that goes in the pool and vacuums up the bottom stuff, because we couldn't have a vacuum for various reasons, because the pool is extremely old. But this is about that pool robot, like, hitting on my husband and what I do to stop it. It's called automation.
Why does this sound like a real scenario?
I do hope people find it funny.
Okay, I already find it funny. All right, guys, listen to this great song, and remember, songs to help, what was it again, in the right order? Songs to help pay for your pool? Songs to help pay for my pool? What is it?
Songs to pay for my pool.
Songs to pay for my pool. Okay. It's like you tell me the most basic thing, and I'm just like, I just want to get it right. And that makes me mess it up in my brain. So, guys, thank you guys for joining us. Please enjoy these lovely stylings from our own very Mr. Jared. And I'm going to pop the screen here.
AI, their cars, machines are taking our jobs. Ain't the first time that I've been replaced. They chat, take news, they'll even start dating dudes if we don't plan to turn things around. Start beating them down. Get out of my face, take the robots away. I see Mose doing chores, and I won't scare him away. Got a tool to clean the pool, is that a Roomba kind of thing? I can see how it thrills you. It's killing me, falling apart, my love. How is this happen anymore? It's in my house, and I don't like it around. Competition for orange and yellow feet. My God, It knows it's headed straight for his door. If I ever were to catch you like I did the other day, with your hose on those toes, oh my Lord, you better pray. I can see how it thrills you. It's killing me, falling apart, my love. How's this happen anymore? You may sense that he's close. Turn to grapple his palm. But if your lechery shows, then I must make you fight with the toaster I stole from the mall. Or I didn't mean to scare ya. I know that's a lot of smoke, but I won't be defeated by nasty robot hose. I can see how it thrills you. It's killing me, falling apart, my love. How's this happen anymore? So I had to buy a new one, but it's under lock and key. Now no part will touch him. He is only all for me. I will always protect you from their tyranny. Automation, appreciation,